name's Chase Combs. I'm here with Dr. Sarah Fletcher. I'd like to welcome everybody to the second ever Conversation Cafe. For those of you who don't know, the Conversation Cafe is something that we started as a result of the RYSE project in an initiative to try and inform the Drayton Valley community more about this project and some of its goals. I'd like to give a special shout out to those of you at home who are watching. Thank you so much for tuning in and wanting to learn more about this project. So I'm going to pass to Sarah and just get right into the questions. So we had the chance to work a little bit today, and I was wondering if you could tell me what the Resilience Leadership Skills Certificate is.
Great. Well, so the Resilience Leadership Skills Certificate is offered through the Resiliencebydesign lab at Royal Roads University, and it's a continuing studies certificate at Royal Roads University. And it's been actually specifically, every time we do the certificate, we get to actually specifically design it for the community that we're working in. So this iteration of the certificate is the first time we've been running it in Drayton Valley, and it's associated with the RYSE project. So it actually is accomplishing two things, which I think is really awesome. We have the opportunity to work with youth, build skills, build capacities, and it's skill building in leadership, in research, kind of different qualitative arts-based methods, and really it's about creative problem solving and social innovation, and how do you work through problems in innovative ways and come up with kind of really interesting social action-based solutions to problems that maybe you see around you in your environment. So that's kind of the goal. But it also serves the purpose of collecting some great data for us for the RYSE project. So ideas about what are youth priorities related to health and wellness and resilience in Drayton Valley. What kind of things would youth like to see happen in the community? We're going to actually be working through the week to create some photo voice material, so having youth take photographs and then speak to sort of their perspectives and experiences. And then also, in the end, we'll be actually putting together some short movies, some digital stories, that'll really give youth the opportunity to share their own experiences, their own ideas, and kind of put forward their perspectives and what they'd really like to see. So I think it's a great sort of, there's kind of two awesome sides to the certificate. You get the research data, but you also get to really build relationships, build skills, and a big part for us as a participatory research project is really, finding opportunities to really engage in interesting ways, and also to, this is a 5-year project, so the youth that we start to work with now, there's going to be opportunities over the next 5 years to move forward in different ways and really build off individual interests, I think, in kind of interesting ways. So really excited about the potential there.
That sounds really awesome. Is there an aspect of the project right now that you think local youth are the most excited about?
I think the digital story kind of idea is something that a lot of youth can kind of hold on to as like, yeah, we're going to make movies, this is going to be awesome. And it's one of the things, that we list in the, if you're interested in art and in sort of creative methods and this kind of work, it's something really tangible. But there's so much more to the certificate in terms of, really thinking through leadership skills, really thinking through kind of how do you solve problems in creative ways. And every single activity that we do, it's really hands-on based learning. So everything that we do kind of ties back into the social innovation process that we work with in the Resiliencebydesign lab, and really kind of ties back into these creative problem-solving ideas. So I'm a little biased, but I think it's a pretty awesome setup.
Yeah, no, that sounds very cool. Can you explain to me and the audience what capacity building is and why it's important to the project?
Oh, for sure. So working with youth, there's so much you can learn from working with youth. I think is the first thing to really focus on. And so much work with youth is done as a kind of after the fact thing. And this is really great because we're starting from a place of working with youth, really having youth-informed processes. And then when we're talking about capacity building, it's not just like my ideas about capacity building would be, we're going to build some research skills and facilitation skills and some really solid skills in digital storytelling and movie making and working with social media. But it's also open to whatever capacity building opportunities the youth are most interested in. So if someone, say, is really interested in drone flying or in environmental assessment work, or in data analysis in different ways. There's going to be all these opportunities throughout the RYSE project over the next 5 years to really kind of hone in on individual interests of youth who are engaged, but then also to have these sort of bigger capacity building goals that are sort of, the resume skills that you can check off. So you get both the really individualized opportunities and sort of these more general skills. So capacity building in a whole bunch of different ways. And for anyone watching who's maybe interested, you have a particular interest in web design or in something that I haven't mentioned, the great thing about this project and about this process is that we really do have the opportunity to build in individualized opportunities for people who want to move forward in different ways. So it's if we don't know how to do it, we can find somebody who does, which is really the great thing about this, I think.
And in the context of the certificate and the RYSE research project as a whole, what does leadership mean?
Whew. Well, I think the biggest thing when you think about leadership and the certificate that we've developed and how it kind of fits into the RYSE project, and really it's about how leadership fits into resilience. And it's about thinking about leadership not just in terms of being the person who's at the front of the room doing the leadership-y things, talking to people, being the public speaker. It's really about looking at leadership in terms of what does it take to work as part of a team? How do you use leadership skills to build resilience in interesting ways? How do you move forward through a problem-solving process? Really drawing on strengths and assets that you have as an individual, but also that you can see in the wider community, to really build on different aspects of leadership skills. So not just the person at the front of the room, but the person at the back of the room who's been doing all the work, making sure that the person at the front of the room has what they need to do a good job. So
yeah, that sounds perfect. So just going forward, I guess, is there any way that, do you have any plans to transition people who are involved in the certificate or the Youth Advisory Council into leadership roles in their community?
Well, totally. I think that's definitely a really strong kind of motivation for us in the whole design and development of the certificate. Is like, how great would it be in 5 years to have youth who've been involved in the beginning really taking on key roles in some of the data analysis. I know for you being involved in the advisory from the beginning, really working through, well, what can we do to engage, to get more leadership roles, and have you actually, doing some interviewing and that kind of stuff. But we're really flexible in sort of moving forward in ways that are really going to support people, build the capacities that they're interested in. So I think it's a great opportunity in that way.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much all the questions I had for you today. If you had anything else you'd like to say about the certificate, feel free. And if not, I'm going to pass to Tyler.
Well, so the certificate is being offered in 2 parts here. So this first part really focuses on kind of framing the certificate in problem-solving, creative problem-solving focus, then moving through sort of some resilience, leadership, skills building material before getting into some arts-based methods and actually creating digital stories. The second part of the certificate is really going to focus on actually having the opportunity to hands-on work through a social innovation lab kind of format where youth involved will have the opportunity to take a problem and work it through a process that will involve some hands-on building stuff, pulling in arts-based material, and creating some community-based solutions to whatever challenges it is that they identify at the beginning of the lab, to have some really tangible outcomes. So that's going to be the second part of the certificate, which we're going to be running a little bit later in September, it looks like. So just to put that out there as well. And of course, the youth who participate in the first part of the certificate, to get the full certificate, they'll do the second part. But it's also open to other youth who might be interested in just getting some of the social innovation lab skills down. So just to put that out there for people who might be interested.
It's very exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chase. Everybody give Chase a round. That was your first live webcast before ever.
Yes.
And you kept the seat warm for me. I love it. It's awesome. It's awesome. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. I'm good. That was
excellent. Great. Excellent. Yeah, that was so great. today was it's warmer than what you experienced.
Yes.
What you've been in before. You just got it from Cambridge Bay last night.
Yeah.
How was the weather there? You tell me that like the ice like literally just broke up.
Yeah, so I guess the ice broke up about 3 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and Cambridge Bay is so awesome. I can't say enough good things about Cambridge Bay. But yeah, the weather for me was a little bit of a surprise because I had no idea how to pack for the north, and it was getting lots of advice from my colleague Margaret, who is a PhD student who's on site in Cambridge Bay, and she's actually online. If anybody has any questions for her, they can put those questions out to her. She knows a lot more about Cambridge Bay than me. She's been there since May, and I was only there kind of for the last 10 days. But she was kind of prepping me on the weather and what to pack and what to bring. And it had been like 20, 22 the week before I got there. But the weather in Cambridge Bay changes quickly. And so while I was there in the 10 days I was there, it was kind of between 2, often it was like around 6, 8, and then it even got up to 18. So it was really, there was a really wide range. But even when it was cold, like I would say on the coldest day, I had the chance to hike up a mountain. So that was awesome.
Wow.
So even when it's cold, you can be out doing great things on the land, and the sort of if you ever have the chance to go to Cambridge Bay, just beautiful.
Now we kind of spoke a little bit about it last night, Cambridge Bay, what it was like, how different, and of course everybody here wants to know a little bit about Cambridge Bay, as they are, of course, they are part of this RYSE project, also was kind of in South Africa. How different is it there? I mean, at what part of the process are they at compared to what part of the process we're at here in Drayton Valley?
So Cambridge Bay and Drayton Valley are actually like, we're doing everything pretty much at the same time. So I'm the sort of research coordinator for the Canadian sites, so both of the sites. So to me, it makes sense to sort of do everything at the same time so we can be going through things together. And Laura, who is the PhD student here in Drayton Valley, and Margaret in Cambridge Bay have the opportunity to kind of talk a lot about the different things that we're doing and that's going on. So that's really great. In terms of the context, it's totally different. And that's I think one of the big strengths of the RYSE project is that we're focusing on the same things. We're focusing on, youth perspectives, on strengths and assets and resilience and community in the context of, changing environments and what that means. But the context in Cambridge Bay is very much focused on, the changing natural environment, and the context here is, changing environment in terms of boom and bust economies. So you get a lot of comparable elements, but also you have these really rich separate contexts. And really the point is, it's going to give us a really rich perspective on resilience and different things that can play into different community factors that influence resilience for youth. So.
Now, if people want to go and find it on social media, if you're watching right now, you want to go find it on social media, there is a specific word that is associated with it, and I love the story that is associated with it.
Right.
Now tell us a bit about that. It's absolutely fascinating for those people that
so and to be honest, I meant to go back and reread the actual story that the name was based off of, and I forgot to do that. But I do kind of know it. So the Ovajuk youth project. So the youth in Cambridge Bay named the project Ovajuk, and Ovajuk is the name of Mount Pelly, which is the mountain that's kind of close to the town of Cambridge Bay, and that's the mountain that I actually had the opportunity to climb last Saturday when I was there.
Okay,
yeah,
right.
yeah. And so there's Ovajuk, and then there's 2 smaller mountains, and the story of Ovajuk, and I think Margaret, I know you're online, and you might have to correct me on this. Has to do with the story of a mother and her 2 children, and they're kind of fighting against the elements, and there's a couple of different versions of this story, they're working together. They think that everything's kind of over and they're about to give up, but then they actually catch some fish and get some food and survive, and then they lie down to sleep, and the lying down to sleep that's sort of where the mountains are, and that's kind of the background. But so that spoke to sort of the idea of resilience to the youth in the community. So it's a great story. I could have the story wrong, so Margaret, you can correct me online, please.
So the tarps. Now, now you guys are all going to go to the Facebook page and go see what the tarps are about. Now the tarps are an interesting story as well. I found that to be very, very fascinating. So tell people what are the tarps and why are they?
So
the tarps.
Well, so we do a bunch of different kinds of hands-on activities looking at leadership, and in Cambridge Bay we did an activity where we had tarps, which everybody uses in Cambridge Bay for going on the land and carp camping and everything, and so we had the youth working as a team on these tiny little folded up squares, but the story behind it was. Okay, so you're on the ice, you're on an ice floe, you can't fall into the water, and go and figure out how to flip over this ice block without having anyone in your team fall into the water. So that was the context, and people figured it out really fast and got moving. But it's those kind of exercises that we use to then reflect on and talk back about. So like who took what leadership roles? How did that work? What could have made it move faster? Who was the person who was really the key leading person in that activity? Well, how did everybody else support that person? What did that look like? What made you able to do it faster the second time you did it? What changed when we made the space smaller? So using these sort of really relatable activities to go through some of the skills that we're working on developing in these certificates.
So the first day was there similar activities that are going to be happening here? I know you don't want to let the cat out of the bag as to telling, if a bunch of the youth are watching and stuff like that, you don't want to be like, oh my goodness, we're going to strategize before and get everything done. Is there very similar type activities that are going to be happening with the youth here in Drayton Valley over the next few days? Because I know there's still 3 days left. Yeah. Of the certificate program?
So there are a lot of really similar activities because we're collecting the same kind of data in the same kind of ways, right? So we're finding out about youth priorities. We're working on getting sort of some photo story data. We're creating these digital stories. But then each certificate's also been adapted to the specific spaces and places that we're in. So when we were in Cambridge Bay, we had the opportunity to go out on the land and spend some time with locals from the community, with Jorgen, who really spoke to the youth about some traditional hunting methods and problem solving on the land and what it looks like when you're out in a blizzard and you need to sharpen the tools that you have with you, and you don't have your knife that you would normally use to sharpen things, or stories of throwing a harpoon and having it bounce off and coming back and hitting you in the head, and then how
I don't sign me up for that one.
Right, but some really great, really context specific stories that can help to again reflect back on some of these skills that we're talking about. How do you solve problems in creative ways? How do you come up with new and innovative ideas, drawing on traditional knowledge and drawing on sort of that kind of context as well. So, and in Drayton Valley, we have the opportunity to really work with youth also in ways that are going to speak to where we're at and what's happening around us, and looking at sort of boom and bust economies and how do youth experience this, and how what is it that contributes to resilience in this context, and how can youth be best supported to thrive in these different kind of environments.
So you talked a little bit about the research is going to be participatory,
yeah.
Which a lot of us, and I know I had to go look it up at one point or another. What does that mean for this research project? How does that, I don't want to say guide the research, or how does that kind of define the research you guys are doing?
So I mean, to have something be participatory means that we're really working in partnership with the people who are participating in the research with us. So in this case, with the youth. And as a partnership, you look for opportunities to really share decision-making power, to think through, okay, this is what we're finding out. How can we share this back to the community in a way that's actually accessible, or that's going to, accomplish 2 or 3 things? How do we draw on strengths that already exist to build capacities in ways that'll move this forward? It also means not just kind of doing something from point A to point B, but starting something, really engaging with the people that we're working with to figure out how could this be adapted or changed to make it slightly better, and we're constantly kind of reflecting on what we're doing and then moving forward in a different way, and reflecting on what we're doing, moving forward in a different way, and we have such wonderful support here with the FCSS and with so many of these great local organizations who are on board with the project, that we really have the opportunity to, like, you know, if a question comes up, we can go to Lola Strand and be like, hey, like, we're hearing this, do you have any ideas moving forward? You know, is there a different way we could be doing this? Or, you know, maybe we can actually address this little thing that's coming up. You know, there might be something that comes up this week, that kind of some low-hanging fruit, some cool idea that comes out of this. So there's always potential. We don't have to wait until the end of 5 years to sort of move things forward, which is great, which is like, you know, so that's kind of the idea of this sort of participatory design, means that we have the opportunity to really, you know, move things forward in a way that'll be relevant to people who are involved, and in a way that'll, you know, potentially have some great outcomes that are also really community specific.
Have you already been surprised today?
Oh yeah. Totally.
That's what I want to know. Like, have you been surprised by, you know, I'm sure you've been surprised by the youth and what you know, what they're discussing and everything.
Well, I mean, every time you do this, you always have that moment of like, is anyone going to show up? Are we going to be sitting here by ourselves in a room? And you know, so I think that first moment in the morning when you look around the room and you realize, like, yes, like, people who, you know, are going to be here, and this is great. We have an awesome group. And then when you're kind of going through the day and you stop and you're like, oh, this, like, everything is working. We're getting some great conversations going. And then by the end of the day, to have a space where, like, people are comfortable enough to be, like, you know, really having these great conversations about what's happening in the community, about their ideas, about moving things forward, to, you know, leave at the end of the day with a pretty good feeling that everyone's coming back tomorrow, is awesome, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And those things are always surprising. And also the way that we do this, you know, we were able to draw on some ideas that came out of the work we were doing today and incorporate them into the research. So at one point, I think I asked, I was like, oh, and if anyone wants to, like, think of any music for a playlist for lunchtime or whatever, we can totally do that. But then we started talking about music, and all of a sudden that turned into, well, actually, if you guys want to send me 3 songs that you're, you know, that speak to resilience, for you, that would be great. And if you want to write a little write-up with that, so now all of a sudden we're doing that, and that's another, you know, data point of, you know, really interesting stories for us. But it's also, it totally kind of evolved as we went through the process today. And some of the people who are in the audience who are with us today are, like, nodding their heads. But you know, it's great to have the flexibility to do that, to really build off where we're at and what we're hearing, and really be responsive in that way too. Plus, it's awesome to have opportunities to kind of build in new and interesting ways of getting to the stories, you know. And for this part of what we're doing, it really is about, you know, getting stories from young people, hearing young people's perspective, and then thinking through, moving them forward through, like, a problem-solving process. Like, so then what? So what does that mean, and what can we do with this, and how can we move this forward in an interesting way? So,
I love the photo stories. I think that's such a neat concept. Where did that come from? Like, where did you look at it and go, you know what? Let's let the youth tell their stories with a piece of technology or something that they're comfortable with, where they're able to go out and explore their existing world. Where did that come from?
well, I can't take credit for any of that.
You can if you want to. It's really up to you.
No. I mean, but you know, these arts-based approaches to research, or like we like to call it creative action research in the Resilience by Design Lab, and really what that's about is taking any creative method you can think of and using that to move forward and integrate action into whatever you're doing. You know, so that gives you the flexibility to, like, oh, like we have cameras, so we're gonna go out and take pictures and get stories that way. Oh, we have iPads, now we can easily make, when I started with digital stories, we had to, like, take pictures, go back to a computer lab, edit the stories, and it was like a 3-day long process with lots of, like, bringing people back to universities to do things, which was great in some ways and had its own challenges. And then all of a sudden, like, iPads come out, and iMovie is on iPads, and you can give a person an iPad and they can go out and take the pictures, record the audio, and make the movie all, you know, on a little tablet that they could bring with them. So all of a sudden we have the ability to bring the capacity to make stories to communities rather than expecting communities to come into computer labs. So that to me is like,
at least they didn't have to go and, like, develop it, like, wait for the 1 hour or wait for the 1 week to get it developed. at some point to be able to go.
So you know,
and do
really
that.
cool arts-based methods have been around forever, and I like to think that you know, I think as people discover that they're around, and like the potential of the conversations that you can get out of using arts-based methods, and kind of, especially if you're looking at innovative solutions to problems, I think using innovative methods that, you know, maybe speak to youth in different ways is really powerful. And I think that, you know, youth have access to technology now in different ways, and are very a lot of people are very comfortable with iPads and that kind of technology. And even if they're not, you know, having access to an iPad and having the opportunity to learn that, I think, is also a great skill that people are really interested in. So you may not be interested in research, but you may be super interested in making a movie, and then making that link of, well, what you're actually doing when you're making this digital story to share your perspective and get your kind of public message across in an interesting way is research in a way, because you're, you know, sharing your story in a different way. And really it's about storytelling, the power of storytelling, and how sometimes a good story can get a point across in a way, I think, that's so much more accessible than, you know, your maybe traditional research papers or other things that might come out of a research process.
So when you were in Cambridge Bay, were you able to see those photo stories already? Did they surprise you, and are you excited to see what the Drayton Valley youth are going to do? Like,
for sure. Well, and
the anticipation's gotta be huge.
Oh, and it's amazing. You never know what's coming out of this. And so in Cambridge, maybe a small group of youth worked through the certificate. They all created these photo stories. And the photo stories are ongoing in Cambridge Bay. So we're doing interviews with youth up there now. And every time a youth does an interview, they're also going out and doing a photo story.
Oh, wow.
So the same thing is actually going to be happening in Cambridge Bay and in Cambridge Bay. Here in Drayton Valley.
Drayton Valley,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm a little bit confused as to where I am. No, but the great thing is, you know, now we're moving into doing these one-on-one interviews with youth here in Drayton Valley, and also building this photo story into the interviews. So you can do an interview, and then you can go away, do a photo story, and come back, and sort of we have the chance then to, you know, meet with people not just once but also twice. So it's, you know, building that opportunity again for reflection, or for people to think about, oh, there's something else I'd like to tell you. You know, and I think it's just a really great kind of opportunity to really get, again, to stories, but in a different way. So more of a sort of traditional interview sort of setup. And part of the certificate is also, you know, interview skills training. So the youth themselves are going to be getting some interview skills training, and then interviewing each other as well. So.
We were talking about that last night as well. We were talking about listening rather than speaking, and I thought that was so fascinating when you were talking about a lot of the youth in Cambridge Bay, about how great listeners they are. Can you elaborate? Can you tell us a little more about that? Like, I mean.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things I noticed in Cambridge Bay, when you go up and you start doing a workshop, and you're kind of up there and you're asking questions, and you're met by kind of silence, or by very kind of slow or thoughtful answers, you can kind of think sometimes that maybe you need to change what you're doing, or you need to think about doing things in a different way, or you're not exactly sure if, you know, your point's getting across. And then we step back and listen to the youth in Cambridge Bay asking good questions about how, you know, how these interviews are going, and their interview skills were amazing. And I realized it's because, you know, I'm used to speaking quickly and jumping in there and doing my thing, but these youth had amazing listening skills. And I think it was because they were listening so well to what they were being told, that they could then sort of move through an interview in a very natural way, and you know, it really became all about asking good questions, and that was a central focus of the week that we had up there. And we'll also be doing that here in Drayton Valley.
Wow. I'm excited. You wouldn't think that 20 minutes would just go by. There it is yet again. So thank you, Dr. Fletcher, for being here. We are, of course, they're going to continue with the conversation cafes. Hopefully here in the fall, we will, of course, take questions on the Facebook page. We're also going to be taking questions from the audience. We would love to hear from everybody. And, you know, just wanted to say, everybody say hi. Hi. There we go. Okay, we're not in an empty room.
We're not
in an
pretending
empty
we're
room. Everybody is worried, like,
Yes,
are you guys in an empty room? No, there are people that are here. Thank you so much to Chase. Great job on your first Facebook Live interview. It was absolutely awesome. Thank you to everybody for showing up tonight. It is in the middle of summer, and I'm glad that my good friend Daryl Scott there has decided to get some color on those legs. So thank you so much, and we will see you at the next Conversation Cafe. All right, does anybody have questions?
You want to poke at me? I got a question.
Oh, sure, no problem.